Good evening, students. I see some known faces. I see some known names. Kushal Jain, Karan Kaura, Avijit. Uh, some of you have studied with me before. That's great. We're starting off on a new journey today. And good evening. Good evening. Gauri is also here. Very nice. Gauri Deshpande, I guess. Is that same Gauri? Okay. Gauri Deshpande is also here. Very nice. Such a nice thing to have old students in the class. So we are going to start off on a new journey today. This is a journey that will take us through a lot of app development. But before that, I'll just get some introduction from the people who don't know me or who have not studied with me before. Okay. So maybe Navneet, do you want to talk about yourself for a few minutes? Navneet Malhotra, which batch you are from and what have you studied so far?
Yes, sir. I am from batch backend cohort 6,
Okay.
and before that, I am not in tech background actually.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
I am from non-tech background. I did BSc plan in graduation,
Hmm.
or uh, and after that, uh, I prepared for civil services,
Okay.
and that uh, and I connected with Relevel, and then journey began through this.
Okay. What have you covered so far in re-level? Can you just give me some brief about what all have been covered for you?
In Relevel in start in start this course will start from fundamental of programming,
Okay.
then e-commerce web application,
Okay.
then advanced DSA,
Okay.
then now today we will go through CRM application.
Okay. 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 So let me repeat: programming fundamentals and
E-commerce, yes,
e-commerce, and then you
then
had advanced DSA,
yes, yes,
and then you have now you are in CRM.
yes,
Okay.
yes, good.
Yeah, sure. That's good. Anyone else who has a different background than this, like who has done something other than programming fundamentals, e-commerce website, and advanced DSA before coming to this class? May I know some of you who wants to talk about that? Have all of you done the same thing? Can you uh, let me raise a poll? Do I have a polling option? We are in doubtless wait. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, no worries. Let's wait for 5 more minutes. I was just thinking of starting off. Sorry, Ravi. We'll wait for 5 minutes, and then once the doubt class is over, I'll get started with the class. Okay. I'll not cover anything for some time. Thank you for informing that. Thank you, Karan. Hello, Ravi. Good evening. I'm waiting for the doubt classes. Thank you, Shan. I'm waiting for the doubt class to get over, and then it'll get started. Nitish is also here. Very nice. Such a nice thing to have you, Nitish. Vivek Patil. Oh my God. Vivek is also here. As those of you who don't know, don't know about it, I was taking class for these students before this. So I was covering the advanced DSA module, and these were some of my best students. And uh, so, okay, backend developer group are what the new faces are from. Okay, so those of you who are new to my teaching, welcome to the whole batch, and we'll have lots of fun. Uh, I'm going to create a new GitHub repository today, and uh, I'm going to share the link for that repository with all of you. I'm going to share the link for that. Nice to meet you, Vivek, as well. Okay, sure. Uh, okay, Vivek. Okay. Uh, so let me get started. I'll define. Just give me 1 second. Let me share my screen so you know what I am doing. GitHub desktop, and here I define a new repository. This new repository is called as CRM app. In this repository, I'll choose a local path, which is re-level, and I'll define a new folder, CRM app, select folder. Initialize repository with a git readme, that's okay. Just this repo, this repo is for my classes on, this repo is for my re-level classes on CRM app. Okay. I'll create the repository and I'll publish the repository. CRM app, keep the code private. I don't want to keep it private, and I'll publish. Once the repository gets published, I'll share the link of the repository with all of you. So I'll click here to show in Explorer. No, not in Explorer, show on GitHub. And from there, I'll copy the link to the repository and share it with every one of you. Okay. So this is the repository link. Make sure you bookmark it on your computer. We are going to come back to this link again and again. Whenever I take a class, I'll post something in this repo. And I expect you to be having a local version of that repository on your computer. Is that clear? I'll stop sharing my screen. Okay. Okay. Hey, Malina, Archit, all of them are here. It feels like everyone is here. I don't see anyone who is missing. Is Ravindra also here? Is Ravindra also in the class? Uh, okay. So, sir, we will be getting all files in this repo. Yes, Nilanjan. All the code files will be here. So all the code snippets that I share in the class, I'll post them in this repo. So you can work from this repo to build the app, or to to just whenever I give some assignment also. Yeah, I'm going to give it from this app. Okay, now I'll open the repository in my uh, open folder, and I'll just go here and CRM app, select. Mm, Now I'll share my screen for the CRM app. Okay, this is the GitHub repo. And today's class is the starting where uh, I hope all of you know about. So whenever I take a class, I create a new GitHub repo or I create a new folder. And today's folder is going to be called as intro revision on asynchronous programming. Okay, and I'm going to write the date in front of it. So 30th of November 2022. Okay, this is the style I follow. All the code for today will go into this folder, whose name, in front of whose name I have written the date also. And I'll also do one more thing, which is I'll write 1, which is the lecture number 1. So the first lecture is this, and I write 1 in front of it. So you can easily access all the code that has been discussed in this class. Typically during the mid time break, I push the changes. Sometimes I push the changes towards the end of the class, depending on how the class is going. So sometimes if I give a assignment to do during the break, I'll push the changes before the break. I might give you like 2-3 extra minutes in the break. I expect you to solve that in the break. If you don't solve, that's completely fine. But if you solve, that's good. And then once the break is over, towards the end of the class, also I push the changes into this repo. So enough about the repo. Now let's talk about uh, asynchronous programming. Okay. So I'm going to write some pieces of code. Uh, Introduction.js. I'm going to write some pieces of code and we'll see how it works. Okay. So for example, a simple piece of code which looks like let I is equal to 0, I less than 100, I plus plus. Okay, so sure. I'll zoom it. This should be good. I plus plus. I wrote a simple line which says console.log I. Very simple piece of code, nothing fancy going on. What is going to happen? It is going, or maybe I'll just make it 11 or 10. I make it 10. What is this code going to do? Nishant, it is going to print numbers from 0 to 9. It is not going to print 10. That's okay. If you write 10, it's okay. It's a off by 1 error. I excuse you for that. Now, if I run this, it is going to print the numbers in the same order that they are occurring. So this is clear. One line is happening after the other line. But then there can be pieces of code that don't follow this same pattern. For example, I can write a piece of code which looks like this. Function complete. I'll just write it now. Const complete. Complete is a function. Function which takes nothing, and just do console.log function completed. It's a very simple function which just writes function completed. Okay. Now this is a function. I do set timeout. It's a function that sets a timeout and calls this function after that time. So it will wait for two seconds. This function will wait for 2 seconds. You want 5 seconds? Okay, no worries. I'll wait for 5 seconds. This function will wait for 5 seconds. and then it is going to call the complete function. Okay. So now after this function, I write console.log calling after set timeout. Okay. Now what is happening here? Let me comment out the first line of code because it's going to distract us. But what is your hunch? What should happen in this code? I'll save it. Any ideas? Calling set timeout function complete. Print calling set hour. Print 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, it will print console line, then line 8, then second console will execute it first. We shall first calling after set timer, then function completed. Okay, so what is going to happen is uh, first, so ideally what should have happened if you were coding it in say Python or C++, the process would be the system will wait for 5 seconds, it will print function completed, and then it will print calling after set timeout. Okay, but the problem with JavaScript is it is a single threaded programming language. It has only single thread on which all the code works. Now, if a function like set timeout comes up, which is going to wait for 5 seconds, the execution will not wait for 5 seconds. It is not gonna wait for 5 seconds. It will move ahead with the next line, and when the 5 second is over, it is going to call this function. That's how JavaScript will do it. Okay, so if I just print this, it will print first, it will print calling set timeout, then it is going to wait for 5 seconds, and then it is going to write function completed. Okay, is this clear? Is there anyone who is not able to understand this concept right now? I'll make it more clear, all more cleaner as we go forward, but this is the basic concept that is happening. Two two sets of statements are returned, but the statement coming later is happening before the standard statement coming before it. This can cause a lot of yeah. Yes, Nilanjan. Um, okay, let me give you another example, and then it will become more cleaner. Um, Suppose I create another function for let I is equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus, console.log, sorry, not console.log, set timeout, print I, comma, I times 1000. Okay. Now I define a print statement. I define a print function, which is a very simple function. Nilanjan, it will make sense. Just give me 1 minute. And in this, I'm going to do console.log I. Okay. Now I'm going to stop this. I'm going to uh, comment out this part. And let's look at what is happening here. If I print these, actually, I want to do it the other way around. I is starting at 10 and I is, while I is greater than 0, I minus minus. This is the function I'm writing. So ideally what should happen is I'll get 10, 9, 10, 9, 8, 7, 4, 3, 6, 2, 1. But the problem that will occur here is I'll get the numbers in which order. Can you tell me, Nilanjan? Can you guess what will be the order of numbers that you will print? 10 to 1, 10 to 1, 1 to 10. Again, there is a doubt in some of you. Some of you are saying 10 to 1. Some of you are saying 1 to 10. Okay, I want to hear from people who are saying 10 to 1. Why do you think it is going to be 10 to 1? Nilanjan, do you have an answer for that? Okay, so it starts at 10 and then it is decrementing one step at a time. So ideally it should, and this function is basically printing the value. So now it should give you 10 to 1. But the problem here is uh, all of them have a set timeout in front of them. So the first number, which is 10, is going to wait for 10 seconds before getting printed. The second number, which is 9, is going to wait for 9 seconds before getting printed. The third number, which is 8, is going to take 8 seconds before getting printed. So it is going to take that much amount of time before getting. So our number I is going to take I seconds before getting printed. So although the process that makes sense to you is it should print from 10 to 1, but it is going to print from 1 to 10. And let me run this. So after what has happened, set timeout print. Just give me 1 second. Let me see if I'm making a mistake. I minus seems to be correct. Let me run this. Mm, no, this file should run. Okay, I'm selecting something or something. Yeah, now there is a problem. Invalid callback. There must be a function. Received undefined. Function const. No. Callback function can definitely take argument. Callback function can definitely take an argument. That's not a problem. Let me use a different word here. Instead of print, let me do show. I think print might be a used word somewhere. I'll save it and run this. Oh yeah, sorry. This should be after callback. So show, and this should be I. Yeah. Handler, timeout, and argument. So this should be I. I will come here. The arguments will come in the end. Okay. Yeah. Now it is good. So show I into 10 and then I. Now at each step, it is going to print one number: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay. Not getting it? Yeah. Argument as last. So this is the set timeouts way of writing things. There are 3 arguments that a set timeout function takes. First is the time handler, which is the callback function you are going to call after the time is over. Then the second is set timer is, yeah. And the first is that time handler. The second is the timeout, which is for what amount of time are you going to stop the process in this? How long will you stop before calling this function? And the third is what are the arguments for the time handler? Whatever handler you have sent, what are the arguments for it? Whatever arguments you send will be sent to the time handler. So the third here is the argument for the show. So what I'm saying is here, let me write it down also to show it here. For all I from 10 to 1, wait for I seconds and then show I. Okay, this is what I'm saying. Set timeout is having 3 arguments, which are this last argument is the argument for the function. Okay. How is it working? Sir, if there are multiple arguments, then it should be placed at last. Yes, exactly. If I want to send 2 arguments, I can send I comma j, I comma, sorry, I comma 2i, 2 times I, and then I can come here and call it J, and then I can come here and print J as well. Okay, so if I just save it, I'll have I and 2i both printed here. Okay, so you can have multiple arguments in callback. Okay, Vivek. So now can we use where in line 14? Line 14, no, I prefer using Avijit. I prefer using lat because uh, I don't want the scope of this variable to be messed up. So therefore, I don't use where. In my classes, I typically either use const or I can explain that, Avijit. Yeah, I'm going to explain that line in a moment. So Avijit, there's a long story behind let and const, but the idea is whenever you define whenever you define a variable with var, if I do var I is equal to 0, and then here is a loop for var I is equal to 10 to I less than 20 uh, I plus plus. And in this, if I use an I, sometimes the scope is messed up. There are cases where the scope of I is not clear with this global scoping. Okay. For this variable I, the scope is the whole function from where you are calling it. Whereas for this let, the scope is only these curly braces. When I write a curly braces here, the scope of this let I is between this curly braces. Okay. Now in this, what you can do is you can define two variables, one outside variable and one inside variable. And then you can work from both of them. So all those mistakes can occur when you do variable. But with let, you already know that the scope is between these two curly braces. This is a short explanation. I might have to take more time. Let is block scope. Yeah, exactly. And where is function scope? It's not global. It's called function scope. It is scoped in whatever function you call it. Yeah. So there are problems with where. Therefore, in modern JavaScript, you don't use where. You always use let or const. Whenever you know you are not going to change the value of something, use a const. Whenever you need to change the value, but you want to manage the scope, use let. Never use var as far as coding is concerned in JavaScript. Okay, Abhijit? Is that clear? Yes, let. Okay. Yeah. Uh, as it prints same output multiple times. It is not printing same output multiple times. It is printing different outputs different times. So what happens is, uh, okay, let me do var. Just give me 1 second. Let me check var if it is printing the same thing. Uh, just give me 1 second. So let's do var. Var is also giving the right answer, so it's okay. Uh, Even with let and const, yeah, var is not a problem here, but the problem occurs when okay, just give me 1 second. Let me show you the code where it, if you give me like, use debugger to understand that. Yeah, if you give me like 5 minutes, if all of you can give me 5 minutes, I can show you why var is bad and why const is, why let and const are good. But that's gonna derail the discussion for 5 minutes. If that's okay, I can show it to you and then you will never forget. Is that cool? Okay. Mm. Okay. So I'll pause this discussion of timeout for a few minutes and I'll define a new file and I'll call it let var.js. Okay. So let me define a function called, this is a simple inventory management software that you are building. The function is function get lowest price of an item. I define a count variable, which is item dot inventory. Check the inventory of the item. And I define a price variable, item dot price. If item dot sale price, if sale price is not null, then you define var count is equal to item dot sale inventory. Okay, let me define the item first. Const item is just an array with inventory, which is equal to 0, price, which is equal to 3. There should be a comma. Sale price, which is equal to 0, and sale inventory, which is equal to 0. So far, nothing, not a problem. And in this, I'll just do console.log get lowest price of item. For a given item, you need to find uh, what is the lowest price you can charge. Simple code. If there is a sale price and if count is greater than 0, then you can do price is equal to item dot sale price. Okay. If count, if there is a still count, then return price, and then finally return 0. Okay. So what you do is you set the item price as item dot price, and if the count of sale inventory is greater than 0, you make the price equal to sale price. Otherwise, you return if the count is greater than 0, which means either one of these, if either one of sales counts or the inventory count is greater than 0, then you return the price that you are charging. Okay. So that's the code. It's a little complicated. I understand it is not how you are going to usually write the code in your software, but it is reasonable that you can have a code like this. Okay. It is very reasonable that you can have a code like this. And now look, if I run this, I did I print it? Console.log lowest price item. Okay. So I think right now it didn't print anything because the inventory was 0. But if suppose I make inventory as 3, then what should it print? Which price should it print? Should it print 3 or sale price 0? It should not print sale price because sale price is 0. Okay. So now I'll save it and I'll run this and it prints 3. So far, so good. Now I can also have a case where I'm printing a sales price. Let's say this is equal to 2 and I make the inventory. Why different output in that code snippet? Because I made the inventory as 3. Before inventory was empty, so I was returning 0 or null was returned. So, okay, I'll show it to you. Just give me a few minutes. So what happened was price was returned as null. So it didn't print it. Anyways, now what I'm doing is I'm making my sale inventory also as 3. So there is some sale inventory, there is some inventory, and you want to print the price. What is going to happen? I save this and I run this. I'm going to print the sale price. So far, so good. Are you able to follow that if there is something in the sale inventory, I'm going to print the sale price. If there is something in the main inventory, I'm going to print the main price. Are you following? Okay. Now let me give you a trick question now. How will you print? I'm printing here. I'm getting the lowest price of the item and I'm printing it. Okay. Nilanjan, yeah, I'm going to show you the code once. Let me close this. The code is like this. I'm going to move this above. Item is just a small item and I'm printing the price. In this, what I'm doing is I'm counting the inventory. Inventory is stored in count and the same variable is defined in a different manner here, where this count is counting the sale inventory. So there are two counts which are of the same name. It can easily happen in any code. Okay. Okay. Now here is the code. I have inventory as 3, price is 3, sale price is 2, and sale inventory as 3. Okay. If I print it, I should get a price of 2, which is the price of sale. What is sale inventory? It is the inventory. It is the number of items you can sell in the sale. Okay. When there is some items that you can, so you go to a shop and you realize that there are items that are on sale. Have you ever gone to a Diwali sale or something? There are items which are given for 50% sale or 10% sale. And then only those items which are given in the sale inventory can be sold in the sale, not the other items. So that is the sale inventory. Only 3 items can be sold at price 2. And then there are 3 items that have to be sold at price 3. Does that make sense, Nilanjan? Hello. Do you want to unmute yourself? Okay, sure. So you have sale inventory and inventory, but count is a single variable. Are you trying to explain scope? Yes, Satendra. Exactly. I'm trying to explain why you should never use var, why you should always use let and const. Okay. That is what I'm explaining here. This example is the key example that you can always refer to whenever you are in doubt which one to use. And ideally, you should not be in doubt because you should always use let or const. But I'm going to write it here. Now look at this. My inventory is 3, so line number 7. Line number 7, if there is sale inventory, uh, if sale inventory is positive, then you can make the price as the sale price. When will you say that the price is the sale price? When the sale inventory is positive and there is some sale price given to you. If there is no sale price given to you, you will not say that then you will not give the sale price. And we cannot use constant because values are changing, but we can use let. And I'm going to show you how you can use let. Okay. Now, yes, please go ahead, Vivek. I'm not able to get your question. Line number 7 checks whether sale inventory is greater than 0 or not. Yeah.
Sir, hello.
Yes. Yes, Vivek.
Sir, why it's showing only to sell price? Why not showing any other prices, inventory price and price and
No. So I'm returning the price of inventory price and sale price, so I have two prices. One is sale price and inventory price, and I'm returning whichever is the best price for the current item. Okay.
so if count is greater than 0?
If count is greater than 0, which means the sale inventory, there is something in the sale inventory. I'm going to, because I'm explaining the var, Deepak, it's a buggy code that I'm showing you, but I'm showing you how it will be difficult to use var in case you use a variable again. So, okay, so I'm showing a error. Therefore, I'm using count again. Ideally, you will not do it, but there will be similar errors that you can make in var. Okay, so going back to Vivek. Yes, Vivek.
Yes, sir, but we have not defined a 0 here. How
You have
you are
not
taking?
0, you have not defined. That is correct. But if the inventory is 0, suppose the sale inventory is 0, that means I don't have anything to sell at sale price.
And then what we will return? If count is greater than 0, then price is equal to item dot sell price.
Okay. That means price of the item, I'm going to charge the sale price if the sale inventory is greater than 0.
And what is the count?
Count is the total count is the count of inventory. Count will remember the inventory count.
Okay, then count is greater than 0.
If count is greater than 0, then I'm going to return the sale price.
Yes.
Okay. If count
Yes.
is less than 0, I'm not going to set price as sale price. Okay.
Yes, sir. Then
So
we don't need a line number 12.
it
If
will.
count.
So if inventory count is 3, suppose inventory count is 3, then ideally this count should get activated in the outer scope.
Yes, sir.
You will not worry about this part now because you imagine that that count is 0, so you will not worry about this part. But this count will get active in the outer loop, and if this count is greater than 0, then you can charge whatever price is there for the item in regular manner. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now let me show it to you. Suppose my sale price is 0 and my inventory is 3 and my price is 3. Okay. Then I'll come here and it will say sale price is 0. So I'll not get into this loop. I'll directly give the inventory price, which is 3. Okay. If I run this, I should get 3 as the answer. So if I run this, I get 3 as the answer. Because what happened here? I started with this code. Item was this. Item dot inventory was 3. Item dot price was also 3. And item dot sale price was 0. So I didn't enter into this if condition. And I directly come to this count. Count was positive. So I printed the price. Are you able to follow?
Yes, sir. And if can we do if count is less than 0, then return price?
If count is less than 0 or greater than 0?
Less than 0.
Why less than?
Mm, but greater than 0, then how we will return?
If count is greater than 0, that means you have items that you can sell at the given price. So you'll sell it. If the count will never be negative because inventory cannot be negative. Count will either be 0 or positive. Count is the number of items. Do you know what inventory is? Vivek, do you know what inventory is?
No.
Okay, so when I sell some item in a shop, I keep some amount of those items in my shop. For example, if I'm selling toothpaste, I'll keep around 15 toothpaste in my godown or in my shop. Okay, and when somebody comes, I'll pick one toothpaste from that 15 and give it to them. Now that 15 toothpaste that I have kept, which are not being sold yet, are called as inventory. Those are the things that you can sell. Does that make sense, Vivek?
Yes, sir. Means remaining.
Yeah, items remaining is what inventory is.
Yeah.
Now there are two types of inventory. One is which are sold at the sale price, and the other which are sold at normal price. Okay.
Okay, sir. Clear.
This count is taking care of the count of how many items are remaining with me right now. Okay. Imagine the sale price is 0, which means there is no sale price. Then my inventory is 3 and my price is 3. So I should just return the price because I have more items than I want to sell. There are more than one item. There are at least one item with me, so I can sell it. Okay, Vivek?
Yes, sir.
So far, so good. Now
Yes, sir.
I say I have two items that I can sell at price 2. I can sell 2 pens at 2 rupees. Okay. So
Okay.
now I have 2 pen which I can sell at 2 rupees and 3 pen which I can sell at 3 rupees. Now in this case, my count is 3 and item price is 3, but my sale price is also 2. My sale price is 2. So I'll enter into this if condition. I'll check the item inventory count, which is also equal to 2. I can sell 2 pen at rupees 2. This count is greater than 0. So I'll set my price as what?
3.
No, sale price.
Sale
What is
price
sale
is
price?
2. 2.
2. Okay. So I have set my price as 2. Now I come out of this loop. My count is greater than 2, greater than 0. Count is 3 right now. This is the outer count. I return the price which I have set, which is equal to 2. Okay. Following? Are you able to follow?
Yes, sir.
So right now I'm saying this is my sale price. Whenever somebody asks the price of this item and I have inventory and sale price, I'll say my sale price is 2. So if I run this code, I should ideally get 2 as the answer. So far, so good. If there is no sale, then item price is 3. If there is sale, the item price is 2. Can you think of a corner case where this code will fail? Count should be 2 or should it be 3? This is the outer count. This count is inside this if condition. This count is this count which is outside condition. Okay. Right now it is not clear what this count is. So I'll just write a ampersand here because I also don't know frankly what this count will be. But in the next piece of code, I'll show you what this count exactly is. Okay. Karan, you are on spot on your observation. But I'll show it to you in just a second. Now, suppose I make a mistake. If inventory is 3, sale inventory is 2, why count is taking 3? Yeah, exactly. So it will be 2. It will be the second count. But anyone who is writing the outer for loop will not remember that somebody has written this inner if condition. Anyone who is writing this function, suppose there are 2 developers working on this function. One defined this count, which is in the outer function. He didn't care about this inner if condition, and he wrote this count. That means he is talking about this bigger count, outside wala count. Okay. So that is the confusion that is occurring. Now you can see how it is confusing for all of you to remember which count we are talking about. Okay. And now let me show you a piece of code which will blow your mind. Suppose I make my sale inventory as 0. Now what will be the answer? What should be the answer right now? If sale inventory is 0, the answer should be 3. We all agree. The answer should be 3. But let me run it. Let me just run this code. If I run this code, I'll get 0. Yeah, check it out. Check this code out. For when the sale inventory is 0, it is giving 0. So you see what happened here? The count started at 3 and 3. You come here, count was updated to 0, and that was the count that it remembered. And then when it came out of this loop, the count was still 0. Yeah, count was still 0. It remembered the second count, and suddenly your code broke, and you don't know where it broke. And this is the reason why you should never use var in JavaScript. In modern JavaScript, it is a sin to use var. Vivek, do you have a doubt? What is happening exactly? You see here, sale inventory is 0. Sale inventory is 0. So you set count as 0. And once you come out of this if condition, still the count is 0. Okay. This count was 0. Then you come out of this, you didn't print, you don't return the price, which was the initial price. You return 0, which was the final 0 that you wanted to return. Okay. So therefore, this code returns 0 instead of 3. Does that make sense, Vivek? Okay. So this is the reason why you should never use var in your code. Now I can correct this problem by using let. I don't care about this. I'll use let everywhere. Okay. Now I use let, and if I run this code now, I will definitely get 3, which was the expected answer. 3 was the expected answer, and this is what I'm getting. Make sense? This, I'm going to show the code. Here is the code. Okay, Karan? Karan? Okay, sure. This is the let var case that I always, that I want you to keep at the back of. Please explain for this snippet. Why different output? Okay, so what is happening is Avijit Nair has a snippet. Okay, let me write that snippet down. Let me write it in introduction. Let me copy it from here. Okay, I is going from 0 to 3. Console.log I 0 and 0 to 3 console.log I. Okay. So it will print 3. Is it printing 3 always? Is this printing 3 times? 3, 3, 3. So what is happening is this where I is not staying same across the execution of set timeout. Okay. So what is happening? You will define I right now, and it will get printed at the end of the execution of set timeout. At that time, the value of I is 3. So it is printing 3. Does that make sense? So you started out with I is equal to 0, then I is equal to 1, and I is equal to 2. When you call this function, which is console.log, it will be called towards the end. It is printing 3 because of closure. Why? Yeah, I'm going to print it. because it already got updated. Yes, exactly. So this where is not just defined inside this loop. Uh, okay, let me, why not? I'll try it with while loop. Just give me 1 second. So I'll come here and no, look at this code. So these kind of confusions will keep on occurring as long as you are using var. Uh, so let's look at what is happening. And one thing that is you are making difficult is, let's make 1 second as the timeout. Yeah. Okay. 1 second as the timeout. Now what is going to happen is this code will wait for 1 second. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write while I is less than 3, and then let var I is equal to 0. And I'll come here and I'll do I plus plus. Okay. And then finally, let me do console.log I after the loop. So I'll just write it after the loop. After loop. After the loop, this is the value of I. And let's see what is happening. I'll save it and I'll comment out the previous code just to be clear on my intention. So what is going to happen? First, after loop, I will be printed. Then I'll wait for 1 second. And then this code will be executed 3 times. So I'll run this. After loop 3. And after the loop, variables value is 3. And it get printed 3 times. That's what is happening here. This console.I is still B3. Yeah, this console.log I is going to be called after this point. 3 seconds after this point here. It will be called here. Okay, in the regular way of writing it. Does that make sense, Abhijit? Do you want to unmute yourself? Is this making sense? I mean, just tell me.
So, but in like a normal loop, for normal loop without set timeout, this confusion doesn't happen.
Okay, you want to see it in a normal loop? Okay. Yeah, in a normal loop, it will not happen, but it will also not happen if you use a var. Say if you use a let inside the if condition, inside the for condition, then it will also not happen. So I'll just come here and do for let I is equal to 0, I less than 3, I plus plus, and I save this. I run this. Okay, this loop after I is not required. Now I'll delete this. Okay, I'll save this and line 19 to 25. Okay, no worries. Current column. So now it is going to print 1 and 3. Why is it not printing? Oh, this plus plus is also there. Yeah. I run this one more time and now it is printing 1, 2, and 3. 0, 1, and 2. Because my let is block scoped. This I is going to be executed only for that block, that piece of code. It will not be executed for the further or the previous code. You can also write it as 3 pieces of code. I can copy the same piece of code 3 times and I can write it as, I can write this if condition I can remove. I'll write let I is equal to 0. Okay. This is first piece of code. Then this is second piece of code. And then this is third piece of code. Okay. Keep that after loop log. No, you cannot do that after loop log. Okay, I cannot do that because this let I is defined inside the scope of this. It is not defined outside the scope, Avijit. Okay. So it is creating individual pieces of I for each one of them. So after loop would print later. So okay, you want that? So let me print. So I can do something like this, console.log after loop. I cannot print I, but I'll just print after loop. Okay. Yeah. So now what is going to happen? first after loop will be printed, and then 1 0 0 1 and 2. This is the same code that you got printed here. This is exactly what is happening when you define it using let. But when you define it using var, things break. Okay, does that make sense, Abhijit? If let and while, yes, let and while I had defined it, uh, you you cannot generally do let and while properly. I don't know how to do let and while properly, because the problem with while is you have to define the I outside the scope of that bracket. So it will be the same. So if I do something like let I is equal to 0 while I less than 3, and then I do set timeout uh, console. Yeah, this will give as var. This will give the same result as var. If I do 1000 and I just do I plus plus, let I is equal to 0 less than 10. I'm not sure about that. Let me do console.log after loop comma I. I'll just remove this loop and I'll just comment this out. Okay, so if I print this, ideally it will print 3 times. It will print 3 times. After the loop, the value of 3 is 3. It's not an infinite loop. It's a finite loop because I is getting incremented. Okay. Yeah. No. What Deepak is saying something like this. Let I is equal to 0 less than 3. And you do I plus plus inside. I don't know. Maybe this is an infinite loop. Yeah. I think this is not. I'm not able to define something like this. It is not valid code. Okay. For each of the for loop is considered a separate block. Yes. Yes, exactly, Abhijit. It is considered a separate block. Whenever you can use a for loop. There are 2 reasons for not getting. Abhijit, do you want to unmute yourself? Now getting. Okay, now getting. Sorry, I read it not getting. So I was like, yeah. It is happening because of closure, right? Because when the callback is executed, there's no I in the global execution context. Yes, exactly. You are right, Arnav. Okay. Exact reason. Yeah, exact reason for this. Because this I variable that you're looking at is this console.log does a very funny business. It looks for the I variable that is available. If no I variable is available in the current scope, it looks for a bigger scope, and then the bigger scope. Set timeout function not getting. It's a very simple function. It's a very simple function, Vivek. That is true, Kushal. But I hope it was worthwhile your time. I'm sorry for taking long time to explain, but I hope it was worth. Okay, so set timeout is a simple function which does this. Let me write set timeout. Set timeout. And if I do question mark, does it return? Okay, if I hover over, it's a function that takes a handler, a timeout, and a argument and a bunch of argument. Yeah, exactly. So it looks for a handler. Is set timeout a browser based API? How it is working? It is working because it is waiting for. So what it is doing is it is waiting for 1 second and then doing whatever you ask it to do. That is the basic funda of set timeout. But the idea is it will not wait at this point. The execution will not wait at set timeout. What it will do is it will continue the execution And whenever the timeout is over, it is going to execute this piece of code. And I'm going to explain you how it works in just few minutes. Okay. How exactly set timeout like functions are working, where these are called asynchronous function. They don't work synchronously with rest of the code. They don't work line by line. Okay. They it's a browser based API. It's basically a function in JavaScript. In top of code, how it's work. So at the top of the code here, what it is doing is, so let me uncomment this part. Let me uncomment this part. Okay. So what is happening is, you have a complete function that needs to be executed after 5 seconds. My JavaScript going to remember this, that it has to execute complete function after 5 seconds. Okay. Now it will continue with its work, whatever it is doing. For example, it will print console calling after set timeout. Once the 5 seconds are over, whatever the code is running here, it will not worry about it, and it will run this piece of code, which will print function completed. And then again, it will continue with wherever it was in this piece of code. Okay. So imagine you go to a restaurant. Okay. And you are having a conversation with your friend. Now what is happening is, a waiter comes to you and asks for an order. You give him the order, and then the waiter will not disturb you unless the order is prepared. Once the order is prepared, he will bring the order to you and he will again go back. You are like the JavaScript function. You keep on topping as long as the waiter is away. Once the waiter comes back, you start eating your food. Once your food is over, you again start talking. And then the waiter brings another piece of information, you execute it, and then you again start talking. So that piece of behavior that you are following is what JavaScript also follows. It is not going to wait for the waiter to complete the meal and before again starting to talk. It will keep on talking while the waiter is doing his work. Does that make sense? If I run this piece of code, it will wait for 5 seconds here. It will say I will wait for 5 seconds, and then it will first print this. And once it has printed it, after 5 seconds, it will print this. So if I save it and I'll run this. So first, what happened? Run this. Yeah, calling after timeout is printed. I waited for 5 seconds, and then the waiter came back. He gave me the order, and then the execution continued from there. So line number 14, how it is working? Line number 14. This one, for loop set timeout 1 into I into I plus 1. Okay. So what is happening is, first of all, let me remove this J. J is pestering you a little. I'll just remove J. So what is happening is, I have a function show, which takes a single argument I. This argument is provided towards the end of this function set timeout. Whatever arguments after the second argument I give to set timeout are treated as the argument for the show function. Does that make sense, Vivek? Whatever arguments I write from here onwards, suppose I write I, J, K, all these arguments are going to be passed to show function. Okay. Now, what I do is, I define a set timeout based on I. However large the I is, I'm going to wait for that many seconds. So I into 1000 means I'm going to wait for I seconds. So first function will wait for 10 seconds, second I will wait for 9 seconds, and so on and so forth. Now my show is going to show the I at the end of these number of seconds. So 9 will be printed 9 seconds later. 10 will be printed 10 seconds later. 7 will be printed 7 seconds later. So although my for loop is going from 10 to 0, my set timeout is going to print the numbers from 1 to 9, 1 to 10. Okay. Does that make sense, Vivek? Sir, we will like this also for I 0, I less, I greater than, will also do I greater than 10, I minus minus. No, that will not work. If I write like I is equal to 0, I greater than 10, I minus minus, this is going to be a infinite loop. What you have to write is I is equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus. Yeah, I plus plus. Now, if I do this, it is going to do the same thing. It is going to print the same result. It will print from 0 to 9. Okay. It will again wait for 0 will wait for 0 seconds, and 1, then 2, then 3, so on and so forth. Yeah, it is going to print the same thing both the times. Okay. Now clear. Okay, sure. That's my job, to make everything clear. Always remember the waiter analogy that I am making to you, and I'm going to uh, talk about this waiter analogy in more detail just after the break. Let's take a short break now. We'll come back and rejoin at the end of the break. Is that okay? Okay, because some of you have to take your dinner. There's lots of people who have their yes. Okay. So break. I'm writing that break till 9:32. I typically take a 18 minutes break because that works well for all the people in the class. Hariharan, I hope that is okay with you. Okay, sure. Hello students, welcome back to the class. I hope you are in the class. We will get started in just a minute. Once I know that you are here, make some noise. Yes. Hariharan, Shubhajit, Ashwin. Okay. So we were discussing few things uh, about asynchronous programming in JavaScript. And this is a problem. This is a big problem. For example, if somebody writes I is equal to 10, I greater than 0, I plus plus, he is expecting something else, but the code is showing something else. Or if somebody wants to write this code here, somebody writes this code here, he's expecting something else from the code, and the code is doing something else. So there are some processes which you can follow to do away with these problems. But before talking about those processes, let me talk about uh, this architecture, this just let me talk about how JavaScript does this process at the back end. What happens at the back end when JavaScript is, just give me 1 second. So I'll close this, I'll open this. What happens at the back end when JavaScript is executing this code? Okay. So you might have heard about function stack, call stack. Do you remember call stacks in a programming language? So there is a call stack, which is basically a stack of all the functions in the order in which they were called. So the most recently called function will be at the top. So there is a call stack, which is basically a bunch of functions put on top of each other. Just like this. Suppose function A calls function B, which in turns call function C. I'll keep like this. And once function C returns, I'm going to return. I'm going to continue my execution of function B. And once function B is executed, I'll continue and execute function A. So the code here will look like function A will be a function which contains B, and function B. This is a pseudo code, so don't blame me for it not being correct. And then function C might be a function which is basically console.log C. Now what is going to happen? First, A will be there on the call stack, then B will be there, then C will be there. You can see this function call stack in JavaScript whenever there is an error. So if I make an error in my code, you can see the call stack. So if instead in this function somewhere, if I write console.lo, I save it. If I run this, after 5 seconds, what you are going to see is the function call stack. First, the process time is there, list on time is there, then this function is there, and finally this call is there. So this is a function call stack. I can build another function call stack if you want, but that's gonna waste a lot of time. So I'm going to just show you that there's a function call stack. But in JavaScript, there's not just a function call stack. There's one more cute little thing that is called as callback queue. There's a callback queue. And what it does is, so I'll draw the architecture for you. I'll draw the architecture. The architecture in JavaScript looks like this. In a normal programming language, it's a very simple function call stack. But in JavaScript, it is like this. There is a callback queue. which remembers when a given function, when a given uh, callback has to be called. And there is an event loop which keeps on running as long as the program is running. So as long as the server is going on, this event loop will keep on continuing. And what this event loop does is it keeps on executing the call stack, which is this stack here. And whenever there is a function from the callback queue, which says I am the function that needs to be executed right now, this event loop goes to that function, execute it, and then come back to the call stack and continue where it was. And this whole structure is placed in an environment which contains a bunch of cameras, maybe a camera, maybe a computer, maybe a server. All these things are there in the environment. And what happens is you keep on pushing this environment, keep on pushing things into the callback or in the call stack. And then as long as the call stack is not empty and as long as the callback queue is not empty, this event loop will keep on continuing. Once the call stack is empty and callback queue is empty, the event loop comes to an end and the program returns from the whole execution. That's the general idea uh, about the execution in in JavaScript. I'm going to share this Jamboard also in the GitHub repo itself. So those of you who want to access it can directly access from the GitHub repo. I've copied the link and I'll define a new file which is called as Jamboard. Let me come outside. Can you explain more about event loop, sir? Yes, I can explain. Just give me 1 second. I'll just call it readme.md. And in this, I'll just write Jamboard, which is basically this code. Okay, if you have this link, you can access the code. Now, what is event loop? So if I run this code, there is some piece of software which is telling JavaScript. Suppose I run this code, I uncomment suppose I uncomment this part. There's a piece of code at the back end which is telling the computer that this function, this statement needs to be run at this point. It is like a pointer that keeps on moving on the code from one place to another. Okay. And whenever it reads a piece of statement, it executes it. So that is called as event loop. It keeps on reading statements from your code and executing them one after the other. If the statement says set timeout, this suppose the statement is like this, what the event loop is going to do is it is going to push this function, this callback function into your callback queue, and it is going to continue to i+1 and it will keep on moving forward. Okay, Ashwin, does that make sense? Yeah. So that is what an event loop is. So I'll save it. So that is the key idea behind event loops and callback queue. So many of you might sometime get into this confusion. I also used to get into this confusion up till recently that call stack also controlled by event loop. Yes, everything is controlled by the event loop. It is like the heartbeat of your JavaScript code. Just like in your body, you have heartbeat, which keeps on pumping blood and keep taking care of your body. Similarly, there is an event loop which keeps on running at the background. Those of you who are familiar with game programming can relate very well to the event loop. In game programming, it is called as game loop. There is a loop which keeps on running as long as the game is going on. Whatever happens inside that loop. Okay. It checks whether call stack is empty or not. Yes, exactly. It checks whether call stack is empty and queue is empty. Once both of them are empty, it returns, it just completes the execution of your code. Okay. Yeah. So when we are making two async call, we don't know whose result come first. Is there a thing? Yes. When you make two event calls, what happens is, we can wait only. Yes. That async await I'm going to discuss in few minutes. So if you don't know which call is going to return first, you should code your program in such a manner that whatever your desired result is should happen only. Nothing other than your desired result should happen. Okay. So yeah, exactly, Deepak. So there might be processes which are taking different times. I mean, I can also code it up here. So what I can do is I can define a random variable instead of defining set timeout to be 1000. I can define a random variable as the timeout, and suddenly all the numbers will come at random times. Do you want to see that? That will be interesting to show. Just give me 1 second.
Sir, I want to see this in the context of API, like when I'm making two API calls and I don't
That
know whose
that
data.
that I can, yeah, that I can do later on. I don't have code. I don't have a API ready with me right now, but yeah, I can show it to you if you want. I can show it to you with random times, and then
Like
it, yeah,
like I want to like I tried using some things, but I didn't think that were feasible for that time. Like I can use set timeout for like I can set for one API key you need to execute after 5 seconds till the time that first API will load up, or either I
yeah,
can use async await, but
yeah.
those doesn't seem to be feasible. I want to do like that, like I have wrote two API consecutively.
Hmm.
Okay, like they are not nested. So and as the JavaScript run goes line by line, so it will somewhat start executing both API at the same time.
Exactly.
Right. Then I just want to wait for their loading times. Like I want to use the result of the API which is coming later, like later than the first API. So I
Okay.
want to wait for their difference time only. Like I only know the ways which are like kind of
So
nested.
what
The
you can
first
do?
one is loading.
No, no. What you can do
Yeah.
is you can use something called as promise all. There is
So
try to read about this one. I can also discuss in today's
yeah,
class.
yeah. Just give me the journal where
Yeah,
about.
promise all.
Yeah,
This method, if you send a bunch of promises here, okay.
yeah.
If you write, uh, so let me do it. Why instead of why talk about it if I can show it to you. So suppose I have let promises is equal to uh, a set of promises. First promise is set timeout, uh, and this is going to print um, console.log. This is going to return. I'll return. I'll
Like
return
the
5.
API is also written a promise, then like
Yeah, yeah,
using promises.
yeah, yeah. So this is going to return 5 at 10. It is going to return 5 at say 1 second. Okay.
1 second. Yeah.
Okay. I define another set timeout. Um, which is um, just give me 1 second. I might be making a mistake in the code. So event loop is a process in the compiler of JavaScript, whether it's a Node.js compiler, whether it is a browser compiler, it's okay. Okay. So just give me 1 second. Yeah, it checks. Yes, Karan, it checks whether callback queue is empty or not. So just give me 1 second. Let me check the code that I'm writing. Mm, okay. So I define, so this might be a little advanced for some of you, but I define a function for which I'm creating a call, a promise, function, resolve, comma, reject. Sir, can you share the GitHub repo link for today's class? Yeah, it is the same link. Somebody can share with Ashwin. I'm just writing the code. I've shared it in the class. Uh, Somebody will share in few minutes. Okay. So I define a function, set timeout. This is a function which is going to do console console.log. Insert timeout callback, and then you can define that resolve function is going to, I'm going to return to resolve 3. Whatever is the resolve function, I'm going to return 3 to it. Yeah. Or, and I've set a timeout for 5,000 seconds. Okay, this is function 1. And I define another function, control C and control V. I define another function, which is function 2. Okay. These are two functions, very similar to each other. You can imagine them to be API calls. And this function is returning 5 after 3 seconds. This function is returning 3 after 5 seconds. And this function is returning 5 after 3 seconds. I define two promises based on these two functions. So I come here and I define a new promise, and I define it on function 1. And I define another new promise on function 2. Okay. Now, so far so good. Now I can do promises dot all promises. This is going to wait until all the promises are executed in this code. And once all the promises are executed, I'm going to write then, which is going to collect the result of all the promises in an array. Return an array. Yes, it is going to return an array. And I'm going to collect that in an array. And all I'm going to do is console.log array. So now what is going to happen in this code is, it will first wait for function 1 and function 2 to return. Once both of them return this resolve 5 value and resolve 3 value, this is the value returned by these functions. Once these are returned, so I'll function callback timeout, in timeout function callback 2, and this is 1. Once both of them return, then whatever is value in the array, I'm going to print it. This is a simple piece of code. First, it will print promise pending, right? No, it will not print promise pending. It will directly print the answer at the end of 5 seconds. So if I run this code, so wait a second. No, I'll stop this. I have printed some extra line. So I'll stop these lines for a few seconds. Right now I have only this piece of code. Ideally, I should have written it in a different piece, but yeah, anyways. Oh, I've not saved it or something. Sometimes these errors happen arbitrarily in the, yeah, now it is running. It waits for 3 seconds, and then it prints this line. Then it waits for 5 seconds and it prints this line. And finally, it returns the output of the two promises into an array. Okay. Deepak, do you see? Now, can you use this promise.all for your test case where you have two promises that are returned from two different APIs? You can club them into an array and call promises. Yeah, can you rerun it again? Yeah, I can run it. So first it waits for, say, 3 seconds, then prints this, then waits for 2 more seconds, prints this, and then returns 3,5. Okay, Deepak? So yes, this seems to be it. No worries, no worries. It happens, Deepak. I hope it helped. Okay, yeah, sure. Why 3 before 5 in array? 3 was waiting for 5 seconds because this is function 1 and function 2. So it waits for both the functions to return. The first argument of this array will be the resolve of first call, and the second argument will be the resolve of the second call, Abhijit. Okay. So this is a bit advanced topic. I have not covered promises, but have promises been covered in the class before? Okay, sure. So then it's good. Then many of you should be getting this, sir. But are promises really feasible? They result in a lot of then chaining. Yes, that is true. But if that is true, sometimes promises can result in promise hell, but it is better than callback hell. Promises give you a better hell than callback. Uh, async await is, yeah. Async await is the king. You can do the same thing with async await, but you will still have to define the promises in that. Where to use this? When you have bunch of promises that you want to wait until everything is executed. Yes. Let's try to do the same thing with async. Do you want to do the same thing with async? Okay. Okay, let's do this same piece of code with async code. So I'll define a new piece of code. I'll just call it async, async.js. And I'll copy this piece of code, function 1 and function 2 and all this. I'll copy all this code and I'll paste it here. Okay. I'll not paste it here. I'll just define a function. Let a function, let's call this boss function. Let's boss function be an async function, which doesn't take an argument. And I define in this these two promises. Okay. Let function 1 be this and function 2 be this. Now what you can do is you can define two promises also. You can define let promise 1 is equal to new promise over function 1, and then let promise 2 be a new promise on function 2. So far so good. Now all you need to do is await promise 1 comma promise 2. And then you can just console.log. You can do both promises done. Okay. So far everything looks fine. And now I can call this function from outside. I can just do boss and call. I'll save this and I'll run this. Let's see what happens. No. One more thing I have to do is await promise 1 and promise 2. Once they are waited, then both promises done. And then I can do promise 1 comma promise 2. I can print the result of two promises. So now what will happen is, unless both these promises are over, this line will not execute. And once this line execute, both the resolved result of both the promises will be printed. So if I run this piece of code, nothing will happen for 5 seconds. And then set timeout for 3 happen. Then set timeout for 5 happens. And then promise 3 and promise 5 are returned here. Okay. So this is how you can do the same piece of code using async and await. Deepak? Does this make sense? Okay. This is another way of doing the same piece of code. It is much easier. Did you push the changes to GitHub? Not yet, Nilanjan. Let me push them. Just give me 1 second. Added sync. Just give me a... What is callback hell? What is callback hell is the same hell that you were in when I was discussing the this introductory lecture. When I was discussing all these variables, when this will get printed, when that will get printed, when will set timeout will print 0 to 9, when it will print from 10 to 9. All those problems that all those brain teaser that I was giving you were actually hellish when you have a big piece of code. Okay, you don't want any developer to think that much about your code when you're writing. You want a simple code that can be read easily. Therefore, for those test cases, we use promises and async and await and promises. So to avoid this kind of failures where we have to remember what is happening right now, what will happen next, what is the callback happening, when is the callback happening, all that. Sir, what's the difference in both? I didn't get difference. Yes, Nishant. So Nishant, the difference is just of syntax. In promise, I define a promise, and this promise is going to be like an object. Promise is an object, which what it does is it executes the code and then returns the result of that code after the execution. And then you can remember what you need to do after the promise is executed. So for this promise, you can do something like this also. Promises dot promises 0. You can take the promise 0 and then you can do then. And in the end method, you can just do console. You can do console.log. Okay. So what you can do is you can send a function which will take the argument of the return of this promise. Whatever is the resolve 5, it is going to print it. So if I just comment this part, what promise does is it is an object that remembers what is the callback I need to call. So if I run this, here writing as promise1, promise2 would not work. Yeah, it will not work because promise1 and promise2 is defined into async function. Okay, you can do it right now. You can do like this also. You can do like promise1 is equal to new promise and let promise2 is equal to this promise. Okay, you can define like this, and then keyword will be on the promise1. You can do like this. Okay, I'll close this. Does that make sense, Abhijit? They separately for both, then separately for both. Yes, exactly. You have to do it separately for both. If you want to do promise all, you can save them in an array and then pass it. So if you want to do a promise all for this, what you can do is you can save them in an array. You can do promise1 comma promise2, and then you can do the same process. Okay. So this is how promises work, Nishant. They are defined like an object and they work like an object. Async await is like works like an array. It works like a function. A function becomes an async function when it gets executed with a bunch of callbacks. So promises, you can define the callbacks inside the async function. And when you write await inside this async function, the process waits there. It waits for that statement to complete. Once this statement is complete, then only the process continues. That is the funda behind async await. So there are two different ways of writing the same thing. What I want to do is I don't want to worry about how the wait until promise is fulfilled. Yes, exactly, Karan, you are right. So what happens is I don't want to worry about what happens when my promise is fulfilled, what is happening after that, what I need to do. So all those processes I don't want to. So this statement, you see promise one dot then, you can write a bunch of then afterwards. So whatever is the output of this, for example, what I can do is I can take an X value and I can multiply X by 2. And then what I can do is I can do then after this, and I can do console.log. Now what will happen is first promise1 will return whatever is the output of promise1, which is 3, and then it will be multiplied by 2, and then it will be printed out on the log. So if I comment out this line and save it, I'm going to print 6 here. I'll wait for 5 seconds, and then I'm going to print 6. Okay. That's how promises work. Wait is equal to promise then. It's similar to promise then. Yeah, it is similar to promise then. Await is similar to promise then. Okay. Then console.log, what doing? Uh, this is the function. This then takes a function. This then takes a function, and we call it as the callback function. For this promise, this is the callback function. And then this whole becomes a single promise. This from here to here becomes a single promise. And this becomes the callback function for that promise, and so on and so forth. So it's like a callback function for them. Sir, line 43 not clear. Okay, what is happening in this line? First, I have promise one. Let's remove promise two for the time being. And let's look at this promise one. Promise one is a promise over function one. Okay. This function, let me remove this line also. This function has two functions that it has. It has a resolve function and a reject function. I don't want to talk about reject function right now. I just talk about resolve function. Resolve function is a function which will take an argument, and this is like a callback function for this set timeout. Okay. Whatever is the call function for this set timeout is saved as resolve. Now this function, when I do then, this is seen as the resolve function for this promise. So this function, this was taking a resolve function. Resolve function becomes equal to x going to x times 2. Okay, this becomes a resolve function, and I send a value 3 to this resolve function. So I send a value 3. So it will return a value of 6. Are you able to follow till that point? This resolve function is going to take a value of 3 and return value of 6, because this is my resolve function. Vivek? Yeah. Now, once it returns a value, that value goes to the next resolve function. This becomes the resolve function for the previous promise. This whole from here to here becomes the promise for this guy, the second then. And this is going to take the return value from this function and pass it to this function, which is console.log. Console.log is going to take an argument of 6. And then it is going to use that argument to do whatever it does. And what does console log does? It prints the argument. So then it is going to take 6 and going to print it. So that's what line number 42 is doing. Okay. Why is this causing error? Yeah, I've changed it. Okay, sure. I save it and I run this one more time to show you that it is indeed going to print 6. Revision on async then is not defined. What is the problem? Promise one, then seems to be. Oh, I have. Oh, sorry. Whenever you run a code in this, don't select anything. If you select, it is going to cause an error. Wait for 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, it will print 6. Okay. This is what is happening. I can show it to you more clearly by writing it like this. Console.log input is equal to x. His input is equal to $. Let me write this. And then I can return x into x into 2. And I'll do a colon. Now, this is going to take input as x, and then it is going to return 2 into x. So first it is going to print input of 6, and then it is going to print input of 3, and then it is going to print input of 6. So first it will wait for 5 seconds, then input is 3, and then the output from that function to the next function is 6. Okay, clear? That's how this function works. Clear, Vivek? So that's how async works. There is one more part that I want to discuss in today's class. Which is basically error handling. Have error handling been taught to you in the class? In any class? Error handling, try, catch, etc. No. Okay. Try catch is a simple piece of code that yeah. So what you can do is yeah. Okay. I'm going to inversion of control. I don't know what that is. Mm. Error handling. Yes. So this is a simple piece of code, which is try something and execute statements. And then you have catch. It catches an exception. I call it error. And it handles error. This is the basic structure of a try catch block. You can directly use them in a piece of code. For example, try catch, last topic this class. Yes, I'm not going to discuss try catch actually, Suraj, I'm discussing error handling in general. How do you do error handling in asynchronous programming? Okay, I know that you have done try catch and other topics, but I just want to spend some time talking about how do you catch errors in case of asynchronous programming. Okay. So let me write a piece of code to demonstrate what try catch block does. Console.log entered try block. Then I call an undefined function, some undefined function. I'm not defining it. And then I'll just do console.log invoked function in try block. And then what's going to happen is this is going to give an error because undefined function is not defined. So I'll just catch the error and I'm going to do console.log entered catch block. And then I can do console.log error being error. Whatever error was there, I'm going to print it. And finally, I'll do console.log printed error. Now what's going to happen is first it will enter the try block. It will try to call this undefined function, and then it will return that function not found error, which is going to be caught by the catch block, and it is going to print the error in the catch block. Very simple piece of code. If I run this, enter the try block, enter the catch block. Catch says undefined reference error, undefined function is not defined. Okay, and then it printed the error. And if you look at the whole function stack, it is printing the whole function stack. First, there is an internal run module, then a function.execute user entry point, then module.load, then module.execution, module.compile, and finally the object, which is the anonymous object. And then you have the undefined function. Okay, so very simple piece of code. But let's see what happens if we have asynchronous programming. Suppose I have asynchronous programming and I want to I want to do the error-based coding. So I'll comment this part out. I don't want this type of comment. Let me use the other type of comment. Yeah. Const fs require fs. So I want to use file system module, so I'm using it. And fs.read file. Let me read a file. Let's read async.js. Sync.js. FS is an inbuilt module in Node.js? Yes, exactly, Ankit. It is an inbuilt module which can be used to read files on your computer. Okay, can define the encoding, and then it will have two things: error and data. Async read file. Read file is also a asynchronous function. It's a async function that takes the name of the file, it takes the encoding, and it takes what are the it takes where are you going to so it takes the function that needs to be called. Why is UTF-8? It is just to say that the encoding is UTF-8. You don't need to define it as such, but it's a good idea. Okay, UTF-8 is just the encoding that you can define. Now finally what you can do is you have to define a function. Let's call it error and data, which goes into this function. If error occurs, then you can do console. This error data is just keywords, or we take any word to define. You can take any word, but it's a good idea to use error and data. What type of file it can read? It can read any text file. Nishan, it can read almost all the files. Okay, this error data, Nishan, does that make sense? Let's see if we can read a JS file first and see if it is reading it. I'll just do log error, else I'll do console.log data. I can define it as error. So I can do error being error, and I can define data being data. Okay, you can save it and I can run this. So it says the error, no such file or open directory, CRM app async.js. It is not there. So what is happening is it is checking this file in this directory, in the CRM app directory. So what we need to do is we need to append the name of this current one dot. I need to append the name of current folder. So let me do it. One dot revision. Let me copy the path. I'll copy path from here. We don't need to give the whole path. We just need to give the relative path of the file. So I can paste. No, I cannot paste. I'll just come here, copy path. I'll just come here and there should be a paste option somewhere. Paste. And now I'll remove this starting part because that's not needed. Because we are already in the CRM app. So I can just remove this part. And I'll just do dot here, save it and run the code. Error, no such file as okay, this folder name is causing a problem. Let me define a file out. Let me read the readme file. Yeah. So let me just do readme. Okay, let me try the forward slash. I think that's gonna work. Yeah, I think that is a good idea. Forward slash, save, run one more time. Error, no file as this async.js. Open. Async.js is not there. CRM app. No, that's a remove the revision on async. No, that part is needed because this file is inside this folder. So it should be we should be able to get it. Let me save the file once. Let me remove this UTF-8. Maybe that is causing a problem. Let me remove this. Save it and run this one more time. File or directory to open. Okay, let me open a text file first. I think there is some problem with JS file. So I'll just come here and define content.txt. And let me define a file inside this content.txt. Okay, I'll try that, Nitish. Text. Save this and save this and run this one more time. No such file or directory open. Okay, now I'll try Nitish's solution. So he just says put directly. I'll save this and I'll run this. No, it is not opening. No file or directory as this one. It is checking in the outside directory. Use this. No, that's not gonna change the problem. Okay, let me read an outside. Let me put this outside. Yes, move, copy, save, and run this one more time. Error, no such file. It is not able to read the files on my computer for some reason. The problem is not that these files are not present. The files are present, but it is not able to use the backward slash. Okay. I don't think backward or forward is causing the problem. Run this. No, backward is. Sorry, backward is not. Save this, run this. Copy the path from error. Yeah, I can copy the path from error. It says there's no file like this, and the file is present. So, why is this problem occurring? Okay, I think that is a good idea. That seems like a good idea. Let me do copy path from directory. Mention the directory up a level also. Let me do node dot one dot CRM app revision. This is called error handling. JS. No, it is not reading that file. That is not happening. Copy path from directory. I can copy the path from here. I can do copy path and I can paste it here. It will still not work. I can promise. And paste it. Sorry. Control Z. Like okay. Copy path. Paste the path. Save it. And this path is backward slashed. So I need to make it forward slashed. Otherwise it is again going to give errors. Let me use the backward slash path. This is going to give error because it is not going to read it. And then I can just open a terminal, a new terminal. Okay, and I'm in CRM app. I can do CD one dot space CRM app. Yeah, I can. Oh, I got it. You see what you see the error I'm causing? There is a CRM app inside CRM app. So if I do cd CRM app, it's a folder. And now inside this, the file is present. Okay, so I'm here. And now I can do. So what I need to do is I need to mention this /. I just need to make this / and it will work fine. The CRM app is a folder inside a folder on my computer. So therefore it is causing an error. / sorry, app, save it and run this. Yeah, text is printed. This content contains the text and it got printed. So we were at wrong path. Yes, exactly. This CRM app contains a CRM app folder. In my directory, there's a path. So if I copy the path from here, what is UTF-8? It is a way of encoding. So the path is like the CRM app, CRM app. So therefore, it is causing. UTF-8 is a type of text encoding that helps the compiler read the code. That helps the FS function read the file. Okay, so I'll save this text here. Now, what I want to show you is how do you handle the same error with a promise? Suppose I create a promise on this code. How am I going to handle the error? Okay, so I'll define a promise that uses the function call, and it does the same thing, but reject. Yes, exactly, Hariharan. It is going to use something called as reject. So I'll comment. Sorry, I'll not comment out like this. I'll comment out like this. Okay, let me write a promise that reads the file, and then I want to do something with the value of the promise. So let read file dot promise, read file underscore promise, be a promise that I'm looking for, is a new promise. And this promise has a resolve and reject function. These two functions it has. Now I can, inside this function, I can define fs.read file. And I can do the same thing as I was doing before. I can paste this line of code. I don't want to get into the same error again. So I'll just copy this path and I'll come here inside the promise and paste this path. In the next line, in the previous line, I'll just do a comma. In the next line, I'm going to do UTF-8. UTF-8. In the next line, I'm going to define what is the callback function that I have. Okay. So this callback function will have an error. It will have an error, and our data. Data can be null, error can be null, anything can happen. Inside this, all I will do is if there is an error, then I'll just do reject error, send the error to the reject function. Else, if there is no error, then send the data to the resolve function. Okay. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm checking the file, and once the file is read, I'm sending the error to the reject function, and I'm sending the data to the to the resolve function. Now you can write the promise like this: read file promise dot then if it returns a value, then I'm going to do well whatever value is returned to me, I'm going to do console.log data, comma data. This is the data that I got. And if the read file promise gets into an error, then I'll define something called as catch. So I'll just give me 1 second. Let me put it in a separate line. I'll make it forward. Dot value is whatever value is returned by the whatever value is called in the resolve function. That value is stored in the val. It is the data. Yes, exactly. I can write it as data. Just give me 1 second. Catch is going to catch an error. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do console.log. The error is the error. Okay. And instead of value, I can call it data because that's what I'm calling inside also. Call it data. Simple. Now this way of writing code is closer to how promises work. Okay. You can try and catch values inside a promise using a catch keyword after the than keyword. You can append a bunch of than keywords before the catch keyword. So I can make an error in the, let me delete one character from here and I'll run this. And then the error will be printed, whatever was the error. Okay. So that's how you can use, that's how you can do error handling with promises. Any questions so far? Sir, could you shortly explain promise hell? Promise hell is when you have bunch of then statements after one another. So if you want to do bunch of, if you want to call bunch of callback functions, so you can have something like this. I'll give you an example. This is an example. Sorry. Okay. So let me make it backwards. Yeah. So you can have code like this. Promise. There's a promise. Then there is a callback function 1. Then callback function 2. Then another callback function 3. You can append as many callbacks after this promise as you want. Okay. And the idea is they will happen one after the other. But the problem with this code is it's very difficult to go through all these callbacks one after the other. You can have an error handling function at the end. And if there is an error in any one of these functions, it will be difficult to decode it. That's what a callback hell is. Okay. I don't have a piece of code that I can directly show you that will demonstrate this, but this is the idea basically. When you look at bunch of people who use a lot of promises, they will append a lot of then statements in front of promises, and it becomes a little difficult to work with a lot of then statements. You don't remember what was happening at each step. Whereas we are more accustomed to this way of coding. If you ask me, we are more accustomed to this way of coding. It's just wait for these two. Once they are complete, then what is solution for this? This async await is the solution, Vivek. Okay. This way of coding is very simple. Whenever there is a wait statement, I'm not going to continue in the function. Something else will happen, but I'm not going to continue. So this is simple to understand. That is a little more difficult to understand. Something like this will be a little more difficult to understand. Even if I want to write a simple piece of code which don't need a promise. Suppose the callback function does not have promise isn't built, or there's no set timeout, or some function that is going to take some time, if there is nothing like that also, even in that case, I have to write then, which is a extra step that I have to take. So to do away with all those difficulties, we have async await. And now I'm going to discuss how you can have uh, how you can do error handling in async await. Okay. So in async await, you don't have to do this catch business outside. So in async await, if I want to write the same function, first I'll comment out this part because I don't want it to run. And I define an async await const async file read. I define a function which takes nothing, function which takes nothing and does this. It's a async function, so I have to write async in front of it. Async function. And you can directly use the try catch block as you have read, as you have studied previously. So you can do try and write bunch of code in this, and you can have catch error, and you can do console.log error, comma error. Okay. Now in this, I can define a promise and work from there. So I can do where read file underscore promise is equal to new promise. This is a new promise. It will have its own reject and resolve function. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy paste the same code that I've written before for the read file promise. Now what I'm going to do is where, sorry, not where, let it be let. I'll call this also as let. I don't know, like where. Yeah, let data is equal to await read file promise. And then I'm just going to do console.log data colon data. Okay. Now I'm going to paste the promise and see what happens. It works exactly like the usual code that you write. The only difference is you're using a await keyword. So I'll copy from here till this point. And this is inside the promise. So I'll just come here. And paste it. Okay. I save it. And if I run, the result should be exactly same as what was happening before. But this is, okay, I have to save it. I have to do something. I have to call this function. So I have to do async file read. I save this function and I run this function and it prints the data as we were expecting. If I make an error, if I suppose make an error of spelling, it should print the error, which is as we were expecting. Okay. This is how you can do error handling in asynchronous code. Okay. And all you have changed is the await keyword. Okay. Instead of worrying about a promise and doing all sorts of things with the promise, you just write a await keyword and the code works as you want it to. Okay. Any doubts about the whole business? Okay. If it is clear to you, can I give you an assignment? Would you like to have an assignment? Okay. So I'll just define assignment.js and I'll just write the name of the assignment. Callback, and no, it's not possible, because it's possible, it's still possible. You can write callbacks badly inside the async await, but it is usually avoided because your code reads like normal code in any other language. Only you are writing await to signify that my code is waiting here for the time being. Okay, you can definitely have callback hell in the async await setup. You can define a bunch of callbacks inside your function, and they might not have a await functionality. Something can go wrong, but this is just a general better way of writing code. Okay, so I'm writing the problem statement first. Oh, problem statement. This is the problem statement. I don't like this. I wish there was a auto. I wish it was automatically uh, doing this process. Yeah. So your task is to write a async function finder. Okay. Your task is to write a function called finder, which is a async function. And what this function does is it will take an array of file names. I call them file names in the form of a string. It is take a bunch of file names and all of them will be in form of strings, and return a two-dimensional array where each inner array has following values at each index. What is the following values? At index 0, the file name of the file. First, at index 0, you have to print the file name. And at index 1, you have to print a boolean which tells you whether the file exists or not. Boolean, where true value means the file does exist and false value means the file does not. Okay. Is the question clear to you? Alt Z. Okay. Let me see if I can do it. Alt Z. Okay, this is good. Thanks for, but it's okay. It's okay. But it's not as I want it to be. Alt Z does it, but it's not as I want it to be. I want it to be having these stars before the code. So I'll just work with this. Okay. So I'll define rest of the code. I'll define some basic codes for you. Okay. I'll just define the finder function. Const fs is equal to require fs, and there is a function. I'll just define it like const finder is a function which is a function. You tell me why async is required here. The file system might return the file names in any order, and I want the file names to be in the same order that I'm writing it to be. Does that make sense, Abhijit? How else will you add a bunch of file names with a boolean whether they are present or not in the code if you don't write async function? Don't use an inbuilt function which checks for the files. I want you to use async here. Typically, I want you to use promises and async and everything to solve this question. Didn't get? Okay. The question is very simple. Your task is to write a async function finder. It will take an array of file names in the form of a string and return a two-dimensional array where each inner array has the following values at each index. Index 0, file name in the form of a string. Index 0 will be the name of the file, and index 1 will be a boolean value where true value means the file does not exist. False value means the file does exist. False value means file does not, and true means file does exist. Okay. Is the question clear, Abhijit? You have a bunch of files in your computer. You can use FS for checking if the file normal function won't work. You can try that out. I don't know whether it will work or not. But since this FS is going to return you a promise, since it is asynchronous, you might have to do asynchronous coding. Yeah. This FS is not going to return you. Can you paste it in the chat? No, I can. Vishal, do you have the link to the repository? Don't you have the link to? Yeah, you can check it from the repository. I'm going to push the changes. Just give me 1 second. Added assignment. I have added the assignment. You can take it from the repository now. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, it is pushed to the repository. Sir, once Q CRM app, one question, line 16 async. Yeah, that you have to write. I'm not going to write. You can write it on your own, Karan. Sir, once Q CRM app, what does that means? What does that mean, Nitish? Let me define. I'm not able to get your question, Nitish. So CRM built only backend? Yes, only backend will be built for CRM app. That is true. We are only going to build the backend. There is a lot of programming that you have to do for the backend itself. So yeah, but we are only going to build the backend. Yeah. CRM full form customer resource management. We will have a whole lecture discussing the app and what it does. Maybe day after, I mean, the next to next lecture is all about the CRM app. So I'm not going to give a lot away about the CRM app right now, but it is basically customer resource management. Whenever you go to say Reliance Fresh, or say you go to Reliance Geo Shop, or some other heritage shop, any supermarket you go, they have a window where they are, or DMart. Yeah, DMart is a good example, where they write your mobile number at the cash counter. They write your mobile number and they give you the bill out of it. And they use an application for it. Similar applications are developed for many of the similar applications are developed for many of the enterprises, and those applications are called as CRM, customer resource management. Okay. DMart is beyond my sir, is it like SAP? Yes, it is similar to SAP. SAP has bunch of businesses, but CRM is one of its businesses. It's a big business. CRM is a big business. Yeah, I work on. Is it for marketing purposes? You can use it for marketing as well. Once you have the data about the customers, you can use it for marketing. You can do a lot of SAP is a company which builds a CRM type of applications. Vivek. Yeah. So it was one of those companies which has a large market share in the CRM app business. But then there are small app builders who will build CRM app for. Sir, we are building CRM. Yes, exactly. We are building a CRM app. There are a bunch of app developers. System application program. Yeah, I don't know what is the full form of SAP. So we can create like SAP company. That I don't know, Vivek. That takes a lot of more things than just coding. Building a company requires a lot of more things. But yeah, of course you can build like a CRM app for a small community. Maybe you can build a CRM app for gyms in your town. So if you are from tier 2, tier 3 city, there are a bunch of gyms which maintain a cash register. You can build a CRM app for them. There is, do you know about this Khata book uh, Khata book company, which is a small company? It is a good startup. So what happened was, this Khata book was created by a person like you in a small town. He was living in a small town. He was enjoying his life. Then he decided to build a Khata book app for his local businesses, and he had like 20,000 users. And then suddenly one entrepreneur went to him, gave him 25 lakhs, and bought the app from him. And then he built the app into much bigger business, and now Khata book is a big business. So you can build these CRM apps for your community, and you can go around telling people, please use my app, it will help you in your business. Yeah. It's good to it's a good idea to just dream about what you can do with this code, this knowledge. Try to write this function. I can write the function call. So let me write the function call. Let file names is equal to, I'll define a bunch of file names. I'll copy the path of some of these files. Copy, paste. Copy path, paste. Are you supposed to do it now? No, you cannot do it right now. It will take some time. It will take some brain power and time, but you can do it after the class. By the next class, you can try solving this question. I don't like this. Okay, just let me correct this. You should be able to open these files using a FS function. Okay, this will not work on your computer. Just give me 1 second. So I'll have to remove this part. Just write dot here. Save it. So if you write like this, it will work out, because repo, yeah, this will work out. And similarly, I can write some more file names. I can define another file name, which is this file ./crm. If you want to change this also, you can change these file names if they are not working for you. As long as you can return true or false, it is good. readme.md. And I'll define another file. Let's call it xyz.txt. I define 3 files. I want you to read them using fs function, and is present. I define let is present be a function which will do finder on file names. Okay, I'm writing this code, and I want you to, and then I can just do console.log is present. It is going to print a bunch of files with the fact whether they are present or not. I've saved the assignment. Try to do the assignment and see if you can solve this question. It will give you a good understanding. I mean, this will basically give you a good understanding about all the things that we have discussed in today's class. So make sure you do it. And with that, I'd like to end the class. If you have any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, we are done. We are done for today. How is it going? The new students, are you liking the class so far? Is there any feedback you want to give? Can we get the PL? Yes, exactly, Ankit. That's a good idea. You can get projects like that using freelancer. That's a good idea. You can build a bunch of CRM based projects on freelance. Yes, Ankit. That's a very good idea. That's a very good place to start your journey. Thank you. Thank you, Nilanjan. Okay. Okay. I hope you have enjoyed the session and you have learned something new today. Bye, everyone. Have a good night. Yeah. Code. I have a internship as a React Native. Yeah, that's good. Did you push it? Yeah, I have pushed the code. I have pushed the last bit of code as well. Sir, can you use arrow function instead? As I sometimes use arrow function, Gauri, but there are people who don't understand arrow functions. Uh, and normally I use arrow functions when I code, but in this class there are some people who get confused when I use arrow functions generally. So I try to avoid them. Okay, Gauri? But it is, yeah, it is latest syntax. That is true. But there are some students who get confused about it. I've tried it in future classes. Maybe in future classes, when I have to write a very small piece of when I have to write a very small piece of function, I typically use an arrow function. But suppose I'm writing a lambda function somewhere or very small callback function, I use a arrow keyword. But when I have to write a larger function, I typically prefer a function keyword because that is easier for students to understand. Otherwise, otherwise I don't have any problem with arrow functions. Okay. Yeah, sure, sure. Okay. Good night, everyone. Have a nice night. Bye. Thanks. Bye.